Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Refined Savage podcast. We are brought to you today by Viking Coffee. Viking Coffee, Evan Armstrong's brand out of Bowling Green, Ohio. If you haven't been to Bowling Green, well, you're not missing that much. But Evan's awesome, and Viking Coffee is awesome as well. Check him out at vikingcoffeeco.com. My favorite is obviously Old Man Strength Brew. That's the brew from the show. But he has a million different flavors and blends on there that I'm sure you're all going to love. When you go there, check it out and use the code VikingCoffee10 at checkout for 10% off. Cerberus, there are absolutely no strongman or Highland Games competitions of any kind going on right now, but eventually, our daddies in the government will let us go back to work, and you want to make sure you are strapped up and ready to go. Cerberus has everything you need. Belts, wraps, straps, knee sleeves, t-shirts, belts, melon salts, the best sandbags in the business, and everything else you could possibly need for your strength journey. Give them a holler. Cerberus-strength.us and use the code Refined Savage 10 at checkout for 10% off. CBD oil is not all alike. Most of it, especially here in Ohio, is absolute and utter nonsense. You don't want to buy it. Don't get your CBD oil from a gas station or your grocery store, or actually any place where, it's not technically legal. So you want to get it from Warrior CBD. Warrior CBD, invented by jiu-jitsu and MMA fighters who get beat up and banged up more than anybody. Head on over to warriorcbdofficial.com. Use the code WARRIOR20 off at checkout. They're awesome people. They have an awesome product. I'm telling you, it will help everything you need help with. Trust me, 20% off. WARRIOR20 off at checkout. Serious Steel. Serious Steel has everything you need for your home gym, your commercial gym, your CrossFit gym, your weight room at your high school, your garage gym, whatever you need. Serious Steel has it. SeriousSteel.com. I recommend their bands. Their bands are the best I've ever used. Their grippers. I love their grippers. I love their knee sleeves. Everything you need. Check out Serious Steel first. Use the code SAVAGE at checkout. And then, if they don't have it, maybe you go somewhere else. But you want to check out Serious Steel first. They're cheaper. The customer service is better. And the products are fucking awesome. Check them out. Stay Classy Meats. Stay Classy Meats. Man, I don't know what to say about Stay Classy Meats. They are the best. Small batch farms, animals being raised humanely, processed humanely. They're living their best life while they're on this planet, and they taste so well when I cook them and eat them. So, my advice to you is if you are not hunting your own game, Stay Classy Meats is the way to go. Head on over to StayClassyMeats.com. Use the code SAVAGE at checkout for 10% off. Finally, today, the Breath Belt. I keep pushing the Breath Belt on everybody. It is a game changer. I love the product. Again, I still don't know all the aspects and ways you can use it. People seems to be inventing new ways to use it all the time. I use it primarily when I'm swinging heavy kettlebells. I'll just use the Breath Belt alone. It really helps with my bracing and stabilization. When I deadlift, I will put the Breath Belt on and then a power belt over it. That seems to work fantastically. Check it out, thebreathbelt.com, and use the code SAVAGE20, all caps, SAVAGE20 at checkout. Today on the show, speaking of strength and stability, we have Coach Sobol from Kent State University. He was on the show probably about a year ago, and they had some big goals and plans at Kent State University. And not only did they meet those goals, but they exceeded them. Coach is an awesome dude, and his thinking on programming and coaching in general, it was a great conversation. I loved it. Love having him on the show. Love him. So I want you to sit back, enjoy the day, enjoy some fine Viking coffee, and we will see you at the end. All right, Coach Sobol. What's happening?
Oh, man, I love I've been excited about talking to you again. It's been pretty cool. So a lot has changed.
So last time we talked, you were like, you guys had just taken over. You guys hadn't been to a bowl game in forever. Or?
Well, we had went through our first season. We were midway. I believe we were midway through year 2 because I think it was on our bye week that I actually got up here to talk to you.
You're right. Yep.
And we were about to go up to Wisconsin and play. I think that's when time frame wise went up there and getting smoked. But so last year, big changes. Kent State has never. They've been to bowl games before, but they've never won a bowl game before. So we actually got to 6-6, had a couple awesome last-minute wins, some big-time program culture-changing wins. Got to 6-6, got a bowl bid, went down to Frisco, Texas, played Utah State and beat them in a nationally televised game, which was really good for our program and our message and everything. And we finished at 7-6. So first time Kent State's ever won a bowl game.
That's fantastic.
And then we did that in year 2. So we're pretty excited about going into year 3, and then all this adversity struck. It's been pretty crazy. So we're just now starting to get rolling. We're about to get guys on campus again and start to get rolling now, which is about a couple weeks behind normal schedule.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of stuff that we're really excited about getting going now. So.
I'm taking there's been a lot of Zoom meetings and.
Man. Yeah, if Zoom stock didn't go up a million%, I don't know. I didn't even know it existed before all this happened. But yeah, Zoom meetings, and for us, it's just the monitoring and taking people's word for what they're doing, and it's eye-opening because it's really, really hard to manage that.
Yeah.
Because you wanna be overwhelming, but then the more overwhelming you are, the more likely it is that they're just gonna be like, I'm not gonna do it. They're not gonna do it. And then most of the issue was just them having access to stuff.
Sure.
Because everything was closed.
Yeah.
And like from our aspect, how do we, finding creative ways for them to go outside and do stuff, and so it's been a very, very challenging time, but I think it's made. Trying to look at the things that I could look, positive. I think that it made me really work on my communication skills. Things that I'm not necessarily super comfortable with. Calling guys, talking to them all the time. I mean, doing things like that. But I mean, I think it's going to come out in the wash, and I think whoever handled this time frame the best.
Well, it's like anything, right? You have time. What are you going to do with that time? And who handled it the best?
Yeah.
Who made the moves? And
so I initially, when we started this whole thing, nobody knew that it was going to be this long. Right? Nobody knew that it was going to be 3 months worth of them just not being with us and not having control over them and what they're doing and how they're living their life and stuff like that. And when I originally made the first 4-week training block, it was super basic. Had a body weight option. And then I had a weight room training option.
Yeah.
And I labeled it the championship weeks, and I sent the email to him and I tried to explain this all out to him. I said, I think that whoever handles this time frame the right way, because you put it on them, right? You're wanting them to want to do it then, because I compare it, and this is a pretty cool comparison that I thought of. It's like when I'm not there yet, and I don't have a kid in college, but as a parent, you spend all these years raising your kids the way that you think is the right way. You teach them, teach them how to deal with adversity. You help them through things. You don't coddle them, but you want them to go through things that they have to find their own solution to. And all the culture stuff that we preach all the time, when they get now they're gonna put it to use. It's like you drop your kid off at college, you're like, okay, hope I did a good job. See you later,
Right.
And you want them to lean on the lessons that they learned with you to make good choices and for their life. And that's a little bit bigger comparison than lifting weights and training. But the culture that we preach to them all the time, is being the alpha and doing, improving your best on a daily basis. Okay, now you're out in the wild. This is a chance for you to see where you're at.
Right.
hopefully we did a good enough job preaching what we preach, and hopefully it resonates enough with them where when they're out on their own, they're going to do it on their own.
Yeah.
That's like big. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a big thing, but it's a small example of maybe, hopefully maybe they got some insight into themselves, and if they're not super self-motivated, maybe they realize how much they need a coach when they come back.
Right.
Or maybe they're like, hey, I really feel like I'm at a good place right now, and I feel like I'm really motivated to get better. I don't know. It's just a lot of things to talk about with them when they get back. So.
And the other thing is, this could really shine a light on how important solid strength and conditioning professionals, not just do you know how to coach the clean or the bench press, but do you know how to motivate and lead a team even when you're not in their presence? And how well do they pick up on your vibe and your leadership and want to go out and do it on their own?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we want to think that when all our guys go home that they're as motivated as us, and they're not, because we're all crazy because we got into this because of why they know we're motivated to do this. They know we're motivated. We're motivated to train because it's such a part of my life. Like, I have stuff in my garage. Like there's no way that I could have gone this long because I can't go into our facility at work. Funny story. The head coach and I, Coach Lewis, went over and grabbed an old rack that was sitting underneath the stadium that's not being used, and it was probably about 2 or 3 inches too tall to fit in my garage.
Yeah.
But we flipped the top bar upside down, and I just jammed it in the drywall when my wife wasn't looking. So I got these 2 like big old holes in my garage now where my rack's like posted up in there. But it's just such a part of my, there's no way I could have gone this long.
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't necessarily, I don't know what, it's not that I couldn't live without it, but I'm a better person when I'm training.
Yeah.
It's my, it's my thing. It's my release. It's what I love to do. Just going down there and breaking myself off in the garage just has this thing that just makes me feel better the rest of the day.
Well, the garage workouts were not that bad, to be honest. I enjoyed them a lot. I enjoyed getting up, having my coffee, and then I started turning on Facebook Live, and I would just go out there and people would follow it,
Yeah.
My wife was adamantly against having equipment in the garage because she's like, you have a gym that's like 5 minutes away. Why wouldn't? And we hadn't been in this place yet. The old one wasn't that far away either. And I had just started slowly bringing stuff home, and I had a pull-up bar installed like a year before this. And I tell people that every house you buy should have a pull-up bar installed in it. It's like it's like 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, pull-up bar. All right, set. And
that's awesome.
It was great because you just you were in there by yourself and you're grinding. I'm in there, like in whatever I slept in that night. And I'm just getting after it. And the workouts were great, and it helped me kind of streamline our whole program. It's like, what do we really need? Do we need all this shit? Do we need to do these exercises, or can we just bare bone this down to nothing?
Yeah.
And get better results?
And isn't that the truth? Because I feel like that's in the collegiate world too, of schools, big schools with bells and whistles and giant weight rooms and every possible thing that you can imagine in their weight room. If you can't coach and get somebody strong with a barbell and some weights, like, you probably have some issues.
Yeah.
At least that's how I feel.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a bar and the old school 300-pound weight set, you can get a lot of good work done with that. When you start working into isometrics, and there's ways to get strong where you don't have to have maximal loads, but obviously that's not our ideal world. But,
and it's hard to promote that to kids. They want to see all the cool shit when they come in. I always talk about my buddy Kivway down in Florida. He's in Braden, Florida. He was with IMG Academy, and IMG was this fucking beautiful campus. Had 3 weight rooms, state of the art, everything. Air conditioned, every piece of equipment you could want. He's training for an Olympic team, and he's under the bleachers. It's 180 degrees. He's got one power rack that he slides a bench in, a rusty barbell with some plates and a bunch of puds, like old school kettlebells that you throw all over the floor. And I'm like, this motherfucker is doing it. He's going to make an Olympic team with a power rack and a rusty bar. And that's just the way he wanted to train,
He didn't want to lift in a facility where you can eat off the floor. Nobody, I think there's all of us, there's a part of us that walks into a place and you're like, okay, you can get some work done.
Yeah.
Those are awesome. Those are awesome places that don't exist too much anymore.
No.
Just because everybody, it phases people out, and just that breed of human is just kind of, fading away.
Yeah, 100%.
The guys that walk into those rusty gyms and they're like, let's get it on. And there's just,
Well, that was what was so cool. And we were talking before the show about Evan with the Cleveland Browns, and what a throwback he is to some caveman strength coaching, and the dude is killing it. And who lasts through 3 different head coaches in the NFL?
That's our profession, and you guys touched on it when you talked about it, is how much is dictated on things you can't control, and it just sucks.
Yeah.
But for him to last through those things is pretty cool, and it probably is a testament to him and probably his relationship building skills and how he communicates with his athletes is probably more important than what he's doing X's and O wise. You know what I mean? Because if you can sit down a guy that's making $1 million and explain to him why he needs to do this, because this will make him play longer in the NFL.
And that Joe Thomas story he was telling was amazing.
Because that he probably, I don't know how long when Evan got there or how long he's been there, but I know that the tail end of Joe Thomas's career, right? That's when I don't know how long Evan's been with Joe Thomas in Cleveland before he ended up retiring, but he had probably had a bunch of different coaches tell him a bunch of different things.
Yeah,
so that's pretty cool that sit him down and be like, hey man, let's get strong.
Yeah.
I can't remember, I think he was saying he was like the NFL age-wise, when you start getting into the 30s and stuff, everybody thinks you're old, but that was cool. I remember that from a couple days ago when I listened to it. Is he said, training age-wise.
Yeah.
Strength world, that's you're ready to go. This, might be closer to your prime. And now there's a lot of other factors with how many years in the NFL, how many car wrecks that guy's been in. How his body's been just completely destroyed, probably from all the way through college football to how many years in the NFL. That takes a toll as well. But I mean, to get him to start training heavy, keeping the intensity up and pulling the volume away, that's awesome. And it's as simple as that.
Right.
Yeah,
and that's, people make it super complicated.
It doesn't, I think that you always come back to the simplest is always the best way. And when you start, I'm a victim of this too, because, about these last couple of weeks, and, as our guys start getting closer to coming back, and we're doing a phase thing where we won't have more than 30 guys on Monday, and it's all local guys and guys that live off campus, because we're going to just do a whole outdoor phase for a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. So we're not even going to touch the weight room, which is good because it plays into what we need to work on anyway, because these guys we need to get them in shape before we can really train anyway. So, but it's just, and then I even just forgot what I was talking about, but that's what I do, and I start talking about all this stuff. So.
That was we talked before we got on air about I've got Vermilion High School coming in here, and we opened our doors before they were allowed to get back to work, so we offered to bring them in here and work with some of their teams, and I had to talk with the coaches who were all about it once I talked to them, and I had to talk with some of the kids. Well, I talked to every group of the kids, and I said, look, I can't turn you into a 600-pound deadlifter in a month. What I can do is get you in really good shape in a month and send you back to your coaches for the work to come after that. And the coaches were all about it. So like you just said, you're going to do with your people is we spend a lot of time outdoors. We're doing such basic stuff, but it's stuff that these kids need, especially because they've been sitting there watching TV and playing, whatever the video game is that they're playing, And
I think that's what, after talking to my staff and kind of figuring out how we want to attack this time with with these guys is just going to be slow, because I feel like we can mess them up if we go too fast, too much, too much too soon. We could put ourselves in a hole that we might never get out of, or give them a lagging injury that's going to give them problems throughout the rest of the season. Because I'm from my performance standpoint, I'm worried about soft tissue injuries. I'm worried about just them not being as strong and or missing out on all this developmental time with them, and then having them just kind of, okay, it's time to play football in fall, and just trying to minimize that as much as possible. But I think the best way we decided was just taking it slow and progressing slowly throughout the whole entire season, and just keep giving them a little bit more, and as they start making those adaptations, like, I think we'll get our team back. It's just going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah, it's strange, because you see these guys play on TV, that the kids you're dealing with are not that much older than the kids I'm dealing with. They're dealing with 2 to 3 years, but it seems like it's a whole different world. It's the same group of kids, they're just higher level athletes. There's gonna be a reckoning this year at the high school level, because you see these kids who are now going to jump into football, and they're going to get a month or so before they start putting the pads on. And what were these kids able to do, and who has the advantage, and my son put on probably 20 pounds of muscle over the quarantine. Now, being a 15-year-old kid, that's what 15-year-old kids do. But he was going to bed. He would wake up in the morning. He would eat. He would throw the hammer, the shot put, or the discus, and lift weights. And then he would go home and he would eat and take a nap. And then he would get up and do another weightlifting or running or something. And then he would take another nap. And then he would eat. And then he would play video games with his friends. And then he would. But that's all this kid did. He was like living the life of a Bulgarian weightlifter. 2-day sessions, lots of food, lots of sleep. And you're going to see kids like that who are going to come out of this and be terrors. And then you're going to see kids who didn't do shit because they didn't have access, or they didn't have the desire, or someone to push them. Yeah. And there's going to be a reckoning. It's going to be crazy.
Well, that just furthers the point of when you are in high school, like how important it is to do. Like, I think that this time, there was no excuse that I didn't have time to eat breakfast. Or I didn't have time to, they're eating, at least bare minimum, they're eating more. Yeah. Bare minimum, they're going to come back heavier, whether that's good weight or bad weight. But that's at least for a developmental, if we're talking about football players in high school, at least like body weight wise, at least they're going to be a little heavier. But so like trying to look at the pros, but obviously the cons, if that's just sit there video game weight because they're eating Doritos and crushing, pizzas all the time. That's not going to be, it's going to take a little while to get them back. But I was talking to my guys the other day, and think about, like, as an athlete, and you could relate to this. Like, did you ever have 3 months off of anything?
No.
I mean, you go back I'm trying to go back probably pre-high school, and I can't even think about what I was doing then, because I can't remember that much. But high school, like, there's no way, because especially now with all this club bullshit and all these travel sports, and like, if you take like a high school volleyball player, for example, like, club and season, like it mixes together. And I was talking to my wife, because she was a Division I volleyball player, and she never had a break unless it was Christmas throughout the year of volleyball. And that was almost 10 years ago. Yeah. And like, just how that progresses now. But I think for the high school level athlete, getting a break is probably gonna be great for some of these kids that, like your son, that are motivated, and it is a big deal to them. Like, he's getting a break from the competition. He's getting a break. Now, he probably craves that. Yeah. Because because it's important to him. But like, think about some of these kids that are, just never stop because of a sport that's just kind of gotten to the point where it's, not necessarily fun for them anymore.
Well, they warp, but the adults warp those sports, and now you're traveling across the country playing volleyball year round, or soccer year round. Yeah. When do you have time to make a better athlete? Your sport you're not going to forget how to play volleyball if you take a month off, you know?
Yeah, and I just think like for developmental reasons, like I think it's going to be good for some of them to actually have an excuse,
Yeah.
like maybe like that senior volleyball player that's going into her last, fall of high school volleyball. Maybe she's gonna feel so much better now, or maybe her body's actually just gonna like I feel like myself again because I'm not just constantly like because to work training into that too.
Yeah.
Like those kids aren't training.
No.
Like they're playing their sport,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I think that can separate. I think it's gonna be good for some people, but obviously when you start talking about collision sports and football and stuff like that, you have to have that built up strength and tendon strength. And
I don't remember ever being beat up as a high school athlete, but I think it was because I did track and field and I did football, and you had these nice long breaks in the middle. All you did was train and relax, and it was weird to come home from school and not have a sport to do afterwards, but it was it gave you a break, and the kids, like you said, just don't have a break these days. And it's not in the benefit to the athlete, or even to their high school coaches, to keep these kids playing year round, because first of all, like you said, they don't get a chance to recover. They don't get a chance to train. They don't get a break from that sport. They don't. These girls that are fantastic volleyball players could be fantastic discus throwers too, but you can't because you're playing JO volleyball all year round.
Yeah, they feel like they feel obligated to do that though, because club volleyball gets you your scholarship.
Yeah.
Like high school, like for them, high school volleyball is like whatever.
Right.
Like at least that's in the like the upper tier like club volleyball programs, like they're the ones with all the connections to coaches, and that all those big club tournaments are where those big schools are watching you play and all that stuff. So like it's just a weird culture. At least that's what I know about because my wife.
Yeah.
But just it's interesting just because you don't like as an thinking about it though. As a high school athlete, if you were to tell me that I get to play my sport year round, though, I'm going to be pretty excited about that.
Sure.
Like I think that myself, I would have dealt with that, like, oh, I get to play this all year round, but is that the best thing for me? Like, I don't know. It's interesting to kind of, get into that point where, I guess you're right there in the thick of it now with your son.
Yeah.
But like I'm a long ways away from that, and who knows what it's going to even be like when my 3-year-old gets into that situation. But it's just going to be interesting to deal with, because you want to give him the best opportunities and you want to help him out the most.
Well, we lucked out because he got into track, I think, because he knew I was a thrower and he wanted to do that, and he got into football. Neither one of those really have any kind of year-round activity. He never played baseball. He never really played soccer. Wrestling, he wasn't his thing. So all these sports that have these year-round competitive seasons, he just wasn't a part of. So it made it really nice. Now, my brother-in-law had a daughter in softball and volleyball and a son in soccer. So all he did was travel every weekend, a difference. And sometimes his wife would have to go to one in one state and he was in another in a different state. It's just like, God, that's such...
Yeah. And you know what? Like we got to experience it because it was fun. Like my dad was adamant about us wrestling when we were younger. And because he was a football coach, high school football coach for years, and he just wrestling and football go together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like body control and just the amount of what wrestling teaches you as from an individual standpoint. Like obviously football, and when you get into those big team sports, there's a lot more than just yourself. But wrestling, you have to be in your own head.
Yeah.
And even when you're a kid, like you're standing there and you see this kid that you're about to wrestle, and you just start, you could psych yourself out.
Oh yeah.
And learning how to deal with those emotions and figuring out yourself, and then the training and wrestling. I remember my youth wrestling practices were hard.
Yeah.
And it just teaches you how to kind of push through some things a little bit sometimes when things get hard, and you're like, I really don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, I should probably do that because it's going to make me a better wrestler.
That's the key. And I think that's what wrestling I wrestled from 4th grade, and then I stopped my sophomore year to throw the shot put because they wanted me to be 150 pounds.
Yeah.
But I think that's what it teaches you. It teaches you that I might not want to do this, but I have to. It puts that in your head. I have to do it.
Yeah.
I can't not do it because now I'm not going to be able to live with myself when I go home. And that's something I deal with that I think came from wrestling. It was, they used to have, God, now the coach would be thrown out and probably sued, but they used to have, we were the Amherst Comets, and they had Comet Vomit Day. So once a year, he would just condition us and run us until people started throwing up. And when people started throwing up, he would stop it. Can you imagine now? You'd be
he's
thrown out
done the first time, because they'd be on social media one time and he'd be chastised.
And everyone would cheer as soon as people started throwing up,
Oh, that's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's wrestling. That's wrestling, man. And even today, watching like the Kent State guys, when they're in certain parts of their off season, like, if a normal person would walk into the field house and watch what they're doing and just be like, is this like what are these guys doing?
Right.
They look like they're just absolutely torturing themselves, but that's just such a unique sport. But I'm thankful that my dad got us involved. My dad was a wrestler in high school and stuff, and it was a big deal to him. And he actually started a program at my high school that still existed now. He started the high school wrestling program at my former high school, but got us involved in club wrestling. And I just remember going to those. I think what has got us on this topic is going to, like, on those weekend road trips, which were cool. Like, we got to dabble in that and got to go. In wrestling season, every weekend we were going somewhere, and youth wrestling meets are like the longest days of your life. And I couldn't imagine as a parent, like, I was a kid, back then, so like it was cool. I got to sit there and eat food out of the cooler and hang out and wait for my match and look at my bracket and be like, oh yeah, what's going on? But man, I think about sitting there as a parent all day. Oh my!
That is not the life
in
I
a
want to
loud
live.
gym, like
stinks.
People are trying to like force conversations all day and stuff, and but we dabbled in that. And my brother stuck with wrestling. My brother ended up wrestling all the way through high school and was a really good wrestler. And I played basketball.
Yeah.
And I ended up switching to basketball, but yeah.
It teaches you stuff, and I think there's a place for that. And it's really it's interesting that I have somehow managed to find strength coaches like yourself and Malcolm Majeski and Evan Marcus and his name just jumped out of my head. The guy at Miami, University of Miami. I'm sorry if you're listening. I went down and interviewed him too, and all you guys are obviously very knowledgeable about your training of athletes, but you all have this old school primate, just lift something heavy and do super basic shit, and you're all being very successful. Surprise, surprise, at doing the super basic shit and making these guys actually work really hard. That's gonna drive me nuts. I can't remember that gentleman's name, but I'll figure it out.
It's really tough because now where we are and how many resources that are available when you start talking about technology and equipment, I mean, it's just on a whole nother level now. And I think that getting into this profession now, there's between books, YouTubes, so much information that you can get, and a lot of it's good information, but it's just about as equally good information there's probably 2 times
guys selling books,
either bad information or just not too much for where you are now. Like, you need to learn basic stuff first and learn how, when we're talking to our interns, our assistant, Ori, does an awesome job of giving them resources to read that make sense in their head. Like, they'll read Joe Kent's tier system book.
It's a great book.
They'll read it, but, because I think there might be every strength coach in the country might say, oh yeah, we're a tier system program. Yeah, they might really run a real tier, but I'm not going to claim tier system, but it helped me figure out how to program.
It figures out how to move kids through the weight room.
Sure, because you're like, that makes sense to me. Yep. I'm going to train their total body every day, because why would I do a bodybuilding type split for for an athlete because
100%.
you know, I'm going to train their posterior chain every day. I'm going to, you know, things like that just make a ton of sense when you're reading it. But that was the book that I started to kind of just like move some gears and try to figure things out. And then, you know, and then that's when mentors come into play and say like, yeah, I use that as a guide, but this is kind of how I do it. And we kind of have a little modified way that we do it, how we structure it through the week. And like, that's what we do. And
Well,
we
it's
don't
the
drift from
artistic
that
part of it.
Sure. Yeah. And we don't drift too far away from that, but you know, those foundational books, and even just Wendler's 531, it's a fun read because he's funny, you know, and he's knowledgeable, but that takes a lot of guesswork out for those kids. And if they've never done a 4-week, 5-week 531 program, they need to do it and just understand how basic. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah.
And like, that's what's beautiful about 531 is like the rep scheme and everything. It's not complicated.
No.
But it works.
It's hysterical, the old school Elite Fitness forum, how complicated people tried to make that program. They would ask him questions, could I add this in instead of this? And he'd be like, no, it's not as good, don't do that, just stick with the program.
And you know, even when the boring but big stuff, you know, the 10 sets of 10, like, that sucks.
Yeah.
But if you have limited time, and he talked about if you have 45 minutes and you just do your main lift, like, you're getting good work in.
Yeah.
I mean, the volume in that is insane. You know, you're crippled for 2 days if
that
you do.
was one of the things we when I was in Highland Games, I was a conjugate guy, and it worked really well for me because it was all explosive power and shit. And whether or not I could have gone a different route, but that was the route I chose. But when I got out of it, I started to play with programming, and I've been morphing and trying to get back to basics. But one of the things we do is we'll come in here and we'll put 15 sets of 3 in the back squat on the board, and in between each set do like 50% of what you think you can handle for pull-ups. So they do a set of 3 squats and then go over and do pull-ups, and they just do that for an hour. You know, and it's so simple.
And man, I think that's just something that is. People don't have a lot of grasp on that sometimes because, you know, I think that people in your situation with this facility, you know, as those kids walk through the door, you're like, how much can I do with them? You know, like you get, you know, and I don't think that's a bad thing to be, you know, a bad way to be because you're excited and you want to you want them to get the most out of your facility, right? Like you want them to go tell their friends that they did this, this, and this, But what you really want them to go tell their friends, or you want their friends to be like, oh, they trained at Blind Dog the whole freaking summer. Like, that's why. Like, look at this dude. Like, or they're just like completely doing better than they did the year before, and they look better, and they're healthier, and they're stronger. Like, you know, not like it's not the immediate. The immediate, unfortunately, now is more popular than the sustained. Sustained work, like
multi-million-dollar strength facility, speeds facility.
But where's the Instagram video? Where's you going through a ladder with a band around your waist, like no, like then, like, you know, like does that fit some point in time throughout a program? Sure. I mean, I'm never gonna do that. But like, do those drills have a purpose? You know, do ladders have a purpose somewhere? Yeah. I mean, I don't value them very much, but like, that's what kids see, and they see these elite athletes doing them, and they think that LeBron James got to be LeBron James because of this silly like band jump thing that he's doing. You know, it's that's not. He is a Ferrari,
right?
And he's getting some high octane, you know, like fuel so that he doesn't get messed up.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, and you know, longevity wise, like he's doing some good work, but like, man, like that's not what got him there.
Matter of fact, I went and interviewed for a job at a facility where he was quote unquote training at when I was coming up, and I wouldn't have known LeBron James from anybody. So I go to the facility and I'm interviewing with the owner, and you know, there's this giant black kid in the back shooting baskets, and he's like, well, that's LeBron James, and we give him a free membership, and he just tells people he trains here, and all he does though is come in and shoot baskets, and I'm just like, this motherfucker didn't even start lifting weights, and he looked like that,
Oh man, I bet he looked like, and I've seen him play from a very distance, from like top seats, but like, I mean, you talk about freaks of freaks.
Yeah,
like, I mean,
yeah.
like I think that he dropped weight like recently, but I mean, I think at one point he was, 260.
Yeah, right.
But like 6'7" or something, God, like just like,
And he looked like a monster at 17 when I saw him.
And then to be able to do what he does, but like that's just ability, and a lot of it's God given. But I'm not saying that LeBron James didn't work at some point in time, or somebody got their hands on him and showed him how to do things right. Probably at some point, but I mean, he's just a gifted athlete,
Right.
and given him some pretty basic tools, he's gonna be able to go far. If basic strength tools, like you just guide him. You guide somebody like that, and they're gonna they're gonna take off just by
what you look at is you'll get two kinds of kids. You'll have the kids that are super athletes right out of the womb, who don't maybe have that work ethic. And then you have guys that are such grinders and pushers, and they just work their way into a good situation. And then you have John Jones, who is a super athlete, comes from a family of all professional athletes. And then you see him in the weight room, and he's squatting and deadlifting and doing all,
like
and then he's
600
going out
pounds,
snorting cocaine off hookers' asses and stuff in the weekends. He's an animal.
Yeah, he is a freak, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I had so when I was up at Syracuse, Will Hicks was the strength coach at Syracuse before we got there for football, and the Jones family, both of the older brothers went to Syracuse, and they were both D linemen, NFL D linemen. So like that's and John Jones is the little brother.
Yeah, right.
He's like, you have an all-pro D end in Chandler Jones that's been still in the league now. Is topping the league of sacks like every year for how many years? I mean, he might be a Hall of Famer. And then the other one, the older one, I can't remember his name, but he was in the league for a long time as well. But I mean, talk about just
Right.
freaks. Like John Jones has that genetic ability. Then you add a strength program, or you add something to that. I mean, and he probably has the full he has the full package, because he understands, being a family of elite athletes. I'm sure they understand how much work how much work it does take to get there, and if you do have ability, you could really set yourself apart. But it probably starts evening things out, right? I mean, you got guys that are God-given ability that might not work as hard, but then you have these guys that are working their tail off for every little thing.
Yeah.
Every little thing. You start getting that starts raising up a little bit, and starts evening up the playing field a little bit.
John Welborn has a real interesting take on it, and he was a guard, I think, for Kansas City and Philadelphia, and he talks about how hard he had to work for everything as compared to those guys. But if you listen to his stories, he'll talk about how he would kind of level up, because they came into the league awesome and then didn't do anything, and he just kept working and working and working and leveling up on them. And he's a good example of a guy who, he's a giant. He had a ton of God-given ability, but at the NFL level,
if you're there, you have some serious ability, or I mean, if you even get there,
Right.
if you even have an opportunity, you stand out somehow already anyway, or you've worked yourself that much to get there.
Buddy of mine, Andy Vincent, Matt Vincent?
Yeah, I don't know them, but I know who they are. Yeah.
So Andy's the older brother, and if you see these two together, it's hysterical, because Matt is like 5'11", just super athlete, very good athlete, but just like a normally sized guy. And Andy is this giant, 6'5", jacked, super athlete, and he made it, and he played on some development squads in the NFL, and we talked a little bit about it. He was just like, it's just so fast, and so, I mean, everybody is just, he couldn't imagine, he couldn't believe the speed when he got there.
I remember going from high school to college and feeling that way, and being like, oh my God, this is insane, and then you go back to your first high school game after being away from college, and if you get the chance to ever go back and watch a game, you're like, Are they
Right.
Are they playing, or
Yeah.
is this slow? Like, why aren't they running fast? And you don't realize that, but it just keeps evolving. And from the college game, you watch some of these college games, and yes, it can get faster, and that's what happens in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I think that the processing speed they expect so much in the NFL is like, because I don't know, it probably is a little faster, but I mean, it's getting closer. I feel like the college game to the pro game. And I don't think there's not that much speed change to it. I think it's just processor speed.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
you have all these super athletes with their brains, it's their job now.
Yeah.
It's their job to be good. It's their job to know the playbook. It's their job to watch film. So I think that they're making decisions faster, not so much like the speed
40-yard
of the game.
dash.
Yeah. But like I think that that's where like the whole level changes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, this guy's on it. Like
It's a really good point because
Yeah.
they're not running any faster. They just
Yeah.
decide and move, and they've got it all down pat.
Yeah, I mean you got a 10-year vet linebacker that knows the play that you're about to run
Yeah.
because he watches so much film, and he knows like when you're in third and long situations, like you like to run this play. Oh, this is that formation. Okay, I know it's coming over here.
Yeah.
And like just stuff like that. That's next level.
Yeah, it's even my son, when he went from eighth grade football to Friday Night Lights, they started him as a freshman, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I can't even imagine what the speed difference is going to feel like that first day you get out there and everyone's moving quick. As opposed to last year where you were playing against some 7th graders, and
Yeah.
kids that were fat, and that's a big jump. No matter, I remember going from freshman, the freshmen would scrimmage the JV in high school,
Yeah.
and those JV kids would come down and hit so fucking hard.
I remember playing in JFL. I remember playing the heavy team because because I think that I can't remember what it was. We had like a weight limit on who could run with the ball.
Put the stripe on your helmet.
Or something. I can't remember exactly how it worked, but there was 2 teams, and then we would play the light team and we'd whoop their ass, but then we'd play the heavy team. And everybody was always like, "Oh God, we gotta play the heavy team."
Those kids are big.
Yeah, those kids are big, and at that time we all wanted to be those guys because we're like, but it turns out those guys all peaked, and we just end up shooting a foot past them anyway. They got mustaches,
yeah.
and you're like, "Oh my God, the guy's got a mustache, he's gonna kill us." But it's pretty funny to think about that stuff that you used to. I remember just playing Little League baseball and like having this guy throw up like this pitcher that just was physically more mature than everybody else, and he would throw gas, and everybody was scared shitless of him. And I remember standing in the batter's box like, "Oh God, please don't kill me," But he's throwing a baseball. Like now to me, like that's silly, but I mean, as a kid, I was like, "Oh God, this kid, he's throwing." and all your buddies in the dugout are like, "Oh my God, that's so and so."
Right.
And you walk in there, you're screwed. You walk in there, you're like, "Oh God,
your brain's already mush."
If I strike out, I don't care. Like just don't hit me, But that's
Kid sports for sure.
pretty cool. It's pretty cool how when you can think about the stuff you went through and what was a big deal to you back in the day.
All that
That's
mental
not,
stuff.
That wouldn't be anything to you at this point.
Well, it'll give you good lessons when your daughter comes up.
Yeah.
And she's probably gonna be 6'4" and.
God, I don't know. She's fun. This quarantine time has been really fun for me because I unfortunately it is a profession where I don't get to see my girls very often. And being a part of the daily life and giving my wife a break and like just been pretty fun.
Yeah.
It's been pretty fun to like include her and my daughter and everything, which has just been pretty fun. And then now we have a unique situation. My wife's pregnant.
Congrats!
She's almost 24 weeks pregnant, so we're gonna have another October baby.
Right.
We're not gonna find out the sex until it's out. So that's gonna be fun. That's gonna be a nice little surprise. But it's just been really fun to trying to look at the silver lining of it. Obviously I want to be coaching. And but it's been really cool to spend a lot of time with them and train and find unique ways to reach my guys. And
well, there was a lot of it was adversity, and that's what it comes down to. And I had a rough time dealing with not being in the gym, not being able to run my business. And I'm such a maniac, libertarian, don't take my rights away person. So I'm getting angry about that shit all the time. But I think there were some really good lessons you learned from the quarantine. I think there was a lot of people re-examining everything they did. With our training program, we re-examined everything and tried to get back to basics. We moved the gym. It gave us a chance to really streamline everything. And I'm seeing this from other people. Like Derek Witzke just posted something yesterday of how he hadn't touched a barbell. The first time he touched a barbell in months, and the time in quarantine changed everything for him. And he said his training will never go back to the way it was. And you look at Brandon Lilly.
I mean,
Brandon Lilly.
Yeah, I mean, he was on a way to completely transform himself, like physically anyway.
Yes.
But like, I mean, it's on a whole nother level now.
I had him on the show 2 years ago, and Brandon had been around the game forever. And I think when you're around the game forever, you have a tendency to develop haters. And he admittedly had some maturity issues as he was coming up. And as I was going to talk to him, I had a couple of friends going, "What are you going to talk to that guy for?" Yada yada. And I said, "Look, I'm gonna talk to the guy and just see what he's like." And he, I think, was at the very start of that whole metamorphosis he was going through, and he was really getting inside his head and really being mindful, and everything was changing. He was already starting to lose weight, and we had this incredible conversation. And I still reach out to him every once in a while, and I just reached out to him the other day because I watched him doing some kettlebell workout with pull-ups, and he looks great, and you can tell he's just living life right. And it's that kind of stuff that you can either fall apart when that adversity comes, or you can completely get inside your head and figure out all the things that you can change right now and make a huge difference in your life.
Yeah, I think that I couldn't agree more. I think the daily, just the amount of time that you have to reflect about everything that you're doing. And I think that some people might come out of this and, if they haven't resigned from their jobs, they're going to.
Yeah.
I think that how important is this to me? Am I doing what I really want to do?
Yeah.
Because you don't get time like this.
Yeah.
You don't. It is. Hopefully, it never happens again.
Yeah.
But you don't get time like this, and it's a unique time where there's a lot. It is adversity, and what do we preach all the time as coaches and strength professionals? Like, push through. At how you deal with adversity, is who you are.
Yeah.
And really, from a team standpoint, how you deal with adversity separates good from great teams.
Yeah.
Because everybody's going to encounter adversity, especially in sports. Like, you could go in with the perfect game plan, and the first play from scrimmage, your starting quarterback gets hurt.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Yep.
You're gonna just bitch about it and just mope and let the team just beat you up, or are you gonna respond the right way? And that's just, it's tough because we've all responded the wrong ways at a lot of points in our life, right?
Yeah.
And that's why and I'm not always still gonna respond the right way because I'm still learning. I would classify myself as still young and still learning. But that's what our job is, right? As coaches, and is to help these kids know that, hey, I know, you think this is the worst thing in the world right now, but I've been there, and I know that, keep pushing through it, and I promise you're going to come out on the right side. And we can give those lessons to them without them having to go through that on their own, because that sucks.
Yeah.
I almost, I don't know if we talked about it last time, but just some of these kids think about, breaking up with their girlfriends like the worst thing in their life.
Yeah.
And it might be at that point in their life. Like, it might be the thing that, between embarrassment and, having to deal with it at school and all the adversity, all the different things that come along with that. But having somebody that's been through it, put your arm around them and be like, hey, like, it's tough. I know. And I know you feel the way you feel, and I understand why you feel that way. But this is how you fix it, and this is how you just keep putting your chin to your chest and going about your daily life, and it's going to pass. Just keep working hard and keep being a good person, and like that's training, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes,
right.
I don't know if you, Louis Carella is Georgia Tech's head football strength coach, and if you don't follow him on Instagram or Twitter or something or whatever, you should give him a follow, because he's a pretty inspirational dude, and he's a pretty cool guy. I don't know him personally, but I've heard him speak a couple times, and what he said in one of his videos the other day, and one of his messages to his team is, strength coaches, he says, I say it to my guys all the time, strength coaches need to be the strongest for their guys at their weakest moments.
Yeah.
And with a lot of stuff going on right now, and how there's a lot of feelings on how our players are feeling about certain issues that are going on in this country, and
that's a good point.
And being a rock for them, and knowing that you're there for them, and if they need to, whatever they need, if they need to talk, if they need to vent, if they need somebody just to listen. But that is a relatable moment to what's going on right now. It's like, some of our guys are in a bad place, and this is an opportunity for us to be strong for them in their weakest moments. But how does that translate into this room? It's like, I'm spotting you when you don't think you can do another squat rep.
Yep.
I'm here for you in your weakest moment, where you're having an issue in your mind where you don't think you can get another rep, but I got you, and I know you can. And like that's big, that's deep. But like,
I'd be interested to hear your take on this with all the racial stuff going on right now. It's interesting that I follow a lot of guys from the military, and almost to a man, whether they're black or white, it's like, because we were part of this team, we see everybody as camouflage. It's it's like we don't, but when you don't have those kind of bonds, and I'm wondering if it's similar with what you've got going on with a football team who's all driving towards that same goal, and they're spotting each other and protecting each other, and having each other's backs. I wonder if it actually helps. I wonder if more people could benefit from some kind of situation like that.
I think that everybody that's ever been involved with a football team, and especially at the level that we're at, because high school teams are just local kids, and they can be completely divided between where you're from, but college is the first opportunity, at least for me, being a white kid from a small area in Missouri where we didn't have any barely any black kids in our whole entire school,
my place either.
And it's not that's just where I grew up, and for me to get to college and really get to experience people from all over the place in all different backgrounds from every different place in the country, and being able to all be in the same locker room and have the same end goal together is a pretty cool thing. Yeah. And a lot of people don't get to experience that. And with this whole thing, it's hard to speak on it, because I don't, I want to be a resource for my players and want to be able to understand everything that they're going through. And I've had personal conversations with some of them, but it's just so hard for me, because it's not one of those situations that I can say like, oh, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, right.
The closest thing I have is that I'm a big, bald, tattooed white guy that gets crazy looks sometimes. Yeah. Like people look at me like, oh, I'll wear my Brandon Lilly Cube shirt, and they see the Russian, and I get these old guys mean mugging me at the breakfast, the breakfast place. But like, that's the extent that I get of feeling that way. I've never got pulled over and felt a certain way. Like, I've never gotten pulled over and been like, oh man, is this guy going to be fair to me? Is this guy going to ask? I've never felt that way.
Right.
And like, so it's hard for me to, say anything along the lines of, I understand what you're going through, because I don't, but I can listen, and I can tell you that I don't agree with, how what's happening, and I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And I have your back. And I think that's unfortunately, that's all we can do, rather than, obviously making real change and finding real things that you can do to help progress this thing, the way it needs to go.
It goes back to doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Do the right thing.
It's like, you know, and I'm always been to my guys about, I don't like people just talking. You know, and I want to. There's like, I don't like people telling me that they're gonna do stuff. I want to see your actions need to mimic what you're saying to me.
Deeds,
Like,
not words.
Exactly, like actions. Actions speak louder than words. Okay, so it's unfortunately for white people, it's really easy on social media to like post stuff or black out your Instagram and say like, I did my part.
Right.
You know, I did my part. No, you know, I'm sure, you know, that support is good and it's good to show where you stand. Okay, but now, how do we change?
Yeah.
You know, how do we? What's the next step? You know, obviously voting is important. Obviously, you know, for my personal reflection on the matter is, I'm about to have 2 kids, 2 humans in this world.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure that I do the best I can for them to understand that people are different. You know, I don't. You know, I don't like saying colorblind because I think that it's important for people to see color.
Well,
you know,
there's culture and heritage and all that shit's cool.
I mean, I think that it's important for them to understand that people are different and that people come from different backgrounds and people come from different countries even, and like, you know, and just to understand the differences in people. I think that's, you know, and not to have hate, you know, because unfortunately racism and these terrible things that people do to people is all learned.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, it's not like you're born a racist.
Right.
You know, it's
Right.
like at some point in time, you know, there were situations where they were either taught it or, you know, the age-old excuse that we always give, oh, it's my grandpa, you know, he grew up in the 60s, so it's okay for him to be racist.
Right.
You know, it's like,
right. Yeah.
That's I think the thing that I can control the most, and I've been trying to reflect on it as stuff's going through this, and just hearing some of our guys, you know, with real pain, you know, like real pain in their voices, and it's hard for me to hear that because I want to help them, and I've always been brought up where you don't present a problem without a solution.
Yeah.
I don't have a solution to this, like, at least, you know, that it's going to fix everybody. I can control myself, and I can make sure that I raise kids that are good people.
That's the most important thing.
And I think that the more people that kind of take on some real actionable things that we can do to actually work towards some sort of change to help, you know, because if you think that there's not a problem, then you just, I don't think you're listening. I don't think you're really listening enough.
And all you can do for guys like us is take care of your community and your group of people. So we have people in here, you know, all races and nationalities, which is weird for this lily white community that the gym is in. And we have black members. We have one member from Guatemala. We have Puerto Rican. We have all this. And when all this stuff started, I looked at all these companies and all these gyms, and they're putting out their stance. I'm not a racist. We don't stand for racism, and I just can't get into that. I can't get into putting out that blanket stupid statement that everybody's doing. That's their big step forward. Is I'm just going to put this out on Instagram and tell everybody that I don't agree with racism. Who the fuck cares? That's not helping anybody. So the way I looked at it is, I can help the people that are with me on a daily basis, and the people that I love that are in my gym, and just be completely supportive of everybody in here, or everyone that I deal with on a daily basis, regardless of their race. Because if any of the people over here, no matter what their race is, called me at 2:00 in the morning for a ride somewhere because they were stranded or drunk or whatever, I'd go. And that's all you can do, is just not be a dick. Just be nice to everybody. You know?
It's just, like you said, it comes back to just do the right thing. Like, we all know what's right and wrong, you know, and like, and it's just I think that how we progress is like, you know, just completely not accepting anything that you know, if you do hear something, you know, just, hey man, like, no.
Yeah.
You know,
it's not going to fly.
That's that is not, it's just not okay. Like, I don't surround myself with those type of people, and if you're going to act that way, then I don't want you around me.
Yeah, right.
You know, go somewhere where you feel like you can say that shit, because it's not here.
Yeah,
You know?
isolate those people. Get them out of the herd.
And fortunately, I haven't. I've very rarely ever been around those people. You
Yeah.
know? And I think that's. I don't know. It's a very sensitive. It's a very sensitive topic, and I want to help as much as possible.
Yes,
You know, and
yeah.
I think that's where I try to. I don't know. I don't have the words sometimes to say it the right way, and I think a lot of people are scared to talk about it with maybe saying the wrong thing when they're trying to be good.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's tough, you know, and I think at the end of the day, you know, I would hope that my guys, you know, before this got put into the limelight and the attention that it's getting now, which is good, but I would hope that beforehand, like it would never have been.
Right.
I would hope that none of my black football players would ever think that.
Right.
You know, Coach Sobel's never said anything in a way that made me feel like anything about my race was different from the guy next to him.
Yeah.
And I would hope that they would feel that way. And if they didn't, you know, I would want to sit down and talk to them.
Yeah.
And if I've ever done anything to make them feel a certain way, like, I want to know, because they're important to me.
And it's important that you can be able to talk. So I talk about. So one of the girls I have in here, Ty, I've known for probably 20 years. And we bust each other's balls constantly. She's a black girl from Elyria, and I'm a white kid from Amherst, and we bust each other's balls constantly. But I know that she has no animosity towards me, or has no problem with the fact that I'm a white guy, and the vice versa. You know, it's just, but you have to be able to make those relationships with people. And I love her to death, you know, and it's just building relationships where you don't have to say, hey, I'm not a racist, because the people you're dealing with see your deeds and understand who you are as a human. And I think social media makes that so much harder, and the virtue signaling makes it so much harder, and look how righteous I am, and it's really difficult. And you know, one of the things, a great slap in the face, another slap in the face for 2020 that came out of this was the implosion of CrossFit with Greg Glassman.
Man, so you're gonna have to educate me a little bit on that, because I've been seeing all the athletes kind of speak out against what's going on, but I guess I don't really know exactly I know that he said some pretty. I don't want to downplay what he said, because I don't know what it is. So.
Yeah. So we were a CrossFit affiliate for about a year and a half, give or take, and we got rid of CrossFit because of the problems at HQ, not because we thought CrossFit was bad. The modalities, the functional fitness, all that stuff was cool. Even the other affiliates were cool, but the stuff coming out of HQ was always disturbing. First of all, they were extremely litigious. So anything you did, instead of saying, hey, do it this way because you can't really do it that way, they would just send you a letter saying, we're going to sue you if you do this. And you know, you're part of their company.
Yeah.
And then they would do things on social media that were meant to provoke. So I'm fine with hunting. I love, you know, I get deer meat and all this shit. But they would post a picture of a guy who had just shot a bear. Okay, no big deal for me, but some people have a really hard time with that. So instead of going, I'm sorry, they would post 6 more pictures of guys with dead bears. So they were very pushy.
Yeah.
So he made a comment. So it was kind of a perfect storm. So he came out, and he was a big COVID is bullshit kind of guy. And so one of the things that pissed off the affiliates was that during the quarantine, CrossFit offered no help to the affiliates. You still have to pay your affiliate fees. We're not giving you a break. We're not telling you how to deal with this. We're not telling you how to come back from it.
Even though most of them are closed.
Yeah,
like
all of them are hurting. So that was the first step. And then he got into an argument with a woman from Rocket CrossFit, and it was over the COVID thing, and they went back and forth, and he sent her this nasty email that got leaked, and it was basically calling her mentally deranged and just being really nasty to this affiliate owner.
Yeah.
And then he posted something on Instagram where he hashtagged Floyd19, like that was bullshit too. So people blew the fuck up, rightfully so. And then everyone started coming out and saying, we've all kind of known this guy was an asshole for a long time, but now this is too much. And, you know, we've been preaching that he was an asshole forever. And a lot of people were preaching that kind of, but they were kind of scared because he will sue the fuck out of you.
Yeah.
So and all these affiliates, or we don't stand with him, he steps down as he says he retires as CEO. Now he's still going to get 100% of the profits and all this shit, so it doesn't matter. He puts in Dave Castro, the head of the CrossFit Games, now the official guy who runs CrossFit, which is again bullshit. It's going to be him still pulling the strings. But then Andy Stumpf comes out. Do you know Andy?
Mm-mm.
Andy Stumpf was a former DevGru SEAL Team 6 guy who was a CrossFit seminar staff guy. He was Greg Glassman's personal pilot. So he was in the mix. He was around all this shit. So he puts out this podcast, which you got to listen to. It's amazing. And he's sitting in his ranch in Montana, and he's talking about this, and he's like, so all this shit that he did is bad, but here's the real shit that's bad about Greg Glassman. I guess he was a very, lot of sexually inappropriate comments to the women on the staff and athletes, and this is what Greg likes, and you have to take care of Greg. And so he's using it looks like he's using his influence as head of CrossFit to get laid and to torture these women. So I guess the final straw for a guy who went overseas and fought for the country was he's with Glassman and this other female who's got a husband who's deployed to the Middle East. And he tells the woman, because he's hitting on her, and he says, well, hopefully we can do a hero wad for your husband soon. Meaning he's going to get whacked overseas.
Oh my God.
So Andy Stumpf says, I'm out.
Yeah,
this is the last straw. So he comes forward in this podcast and says, look, I was complicit because I didn't speak up earlier, and I haven't spoken up since this. And I understand that there's a huge possibility that I'm going to get sued for this, but I can't sit back any longer and let this go. And his last thing was, he goes, and let me be perfectly clear, I will burn this motherfucker to the ground before I let this go on anymore. And I posted that on my Instagram, just that clip of him saying, I will burn this motherfucker to the ground. And I was just like, oh my God, finally somebody is speaking out. And I didn't know anything about the whole Me Too shit, but CrossFit is at and now you have people. So you have all these people who were putting up the black things on their Instagram and saying that this is wrong. And then when Me Too came out, that was wrong. But now their livelihood's in jeopardy. So they're linked to CrossFit, they're an affiliate, or maybe they're an athlete.
And life might be good for them because they're linked to CrossFit, right?
So now they have to make a hard choice.
Who are you really?
Are you this virtuous person who has blacked out their screen for Floyd, or you've hashtag Me Too for all those women who were, but now you're in the mix. You didn't want to be, you had nothing to do with it, but you are a part of an organization run by a guy who not only...
He was an asshole.
He was just an asshole of mega proportions.
Not a good human.
Not a good human. And doing all those things that you fought against, but now you're linked to him. And you know that even though he said he retired, every penny you're giving goes to that motherfucker. And you're linked to him. What do you do? What do you do now? Do you do the right thing and back out? And I tell you what, when all this came out on Sunday, I was a drunk motherfucker because I was celebrating, because it was like, finally everyone gets to see what we knew was sketchy.
Maybe even too, you can be a resource and be like, hey, you guys can be okay. Like,
that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, like,
because they try to scare you. They say when you de-affiliate, you're going to lose all your members.
Like,
we didn't lose anybody.
Yeah, like it might have helped me get a few. It might have helped you when CrossFit was booming and like you could throw CrossFit up on your sign.
Yep.
You know, like that's really what you're paying for, right?
Yep,
I mean,
that's all they give
I don't
you.
know. I don't know exactly, but are you just paying for you to call yourself a CrossFit facility,
100%.
so that when people Google CrossFit, they can look up and you get the person that just watched ESPN last night that wants to be a CrossFitter.
100%.
You know,
That's all you get.
But that's not changing your day to day, huh?
No. So I know like CrossFit Black Flag in Avon has now dropped their affiliate. Erie Shore, which is down the street, dropped their affiliate. But we have some CrossFit gyms in the area who are run by women. And I really am really interested to see the route they will take. And I don't know, they may have already dropped, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested to hear, and I'd like to get them on the show to talk about their thoughts on this, because, you know, my wife was a CrossFit Regionals competitor, and she was the most anti CrossFit HQ person that I know of, even before all this.
Yeah.
And it's just really interesting. And like I said, I've always loved the sport of CrossFit. I love the modality. I think it's the best thing that ever happened to the fitness industry because it got people off the couch and working. But that HQ and Greg Glassman were just poison.
Man, I had no clue.
Yeah.
You know, I really did. I had no clue that it was that like how people really felt about.
On your way home today, listen to I'll send you the Andy
Sure,
Stubb podcast because it is amazing. Here's this guy who's been at the absolute, I mean, when you're not just a SEAL, you're SEAL Team 6, and you can tell he's a little nervous because he knows that someone's going to try to sue him over this, you know, but he's doing the right thing.
But at the end of the day, though, he's coming out, you know, he's talking about, hey, like, yeah, I probably should have did this a long time ago.
He said
I
that
knew
a
that
bunch
things
of
were
times.
wrong,
Yep.
you know, but at least it's coming out now, and at least he's trying to be a good, good about it now.
It was funny because when they developed CrossFit football, they had John Wellborn in charge of that, and I guess it was John Wellborn and Andy Stump sitting out at a bonfire, and Greg Glassman calls and says, hey, to John Wellborn, we want you to develop this CrossFit football. And he's like, well, what's CrossFit football? And he goes, I don't know, make it up. So they had to sit there at the bonfire. They'd had a couple cocktails. They came up with like 300 workouts in one night, and that just became CrossFit football. And then he got into it with Glassman because here John Wellborn had spent all this time in the league and knew how to create football players. And he was like, well, this is all bullshit. We're getting rid of these 300 workouts and really putting together a program. And Glassman didn't like that because it was too specific. You know.
That's crazy. Wow.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Another 2020 craziness
now
going
I
on.
hope that's pretty cool though, because I like when people get put in situations where they have to like show their true colors.
This is it.
And you know, and social media is tough because, you know, you like to think that that's an avenue of that, where a lot of times you get to see people's true colors because, you know, those small little clicks that you make on things that you like, whether we like it or not, and whether how social media dictates a lot of things the things we do and a lot of the news outlets we have, you are affiliating yourself with things on a daily basis by what you click and what you like.
Yeah.
And so it's important, you know, when people do post things and people don't like things, you know, it's just or you know, dislike things or talk shit in the comments or like something.
Yeah.
You know, to a lot of people, it's starting to show. It really shows your true. You know who. You know, it's an insight into who you are without sitting like we are right now talking to each other. You know, and it's easy on a screen when you don't have somebody within striking distance of you to say some pretty fucked up things about people, and you know, and to say things that you don't quite understand, and to really, you know, it's upsetting to see, you know, and I do the best I can being affiliated with the university and like trying not to say things through emotion, because sometimes I see stuff and I get pissed.
Yeah.
And like I want to just, you know, but then am I doing exactly what I hate is I'm talking smack to somebody online, you know, but that's just it's hard because, you know, you see what social media brings into this whole equation, you know.
Yeah, and so I think the most important thing as coaches is to and dealing with the kids we're dealing with is to teach them that more so than, anything we do physically in the gym is just to be leaders of men. I tell the story in relation to I told this to my wife in relation to the whole CrossFit thing. So in a very, very scaled down version of this, I was driving down to Columbus for a podcast, and I went into this rest stop, big Oasis gas station thing, and I got a cup of coffee, and I'm not thinking, and I'm texting, and and I walk out to my car, and I sit down, and I sit there, and I go, oh fuck, I just walked out with this cup of coffee and didn't even realize I didn't pay. I was gone. I could have. No one would have said shit to me.
Yeah.
And it was a long walk, and I was like, fuck. So I got up and I walked back in. I walked up to the counter and I didn't say anything. I just paid for my coffee and left, But it's like, I mean, I was raised with that innate thing in my brain that, and I'm not like some virtuous, great guy, but I know I wouldn't have been able to live with myself if I just drove off with that coffee.
Yeah.
I had to go back and pay for that. And that's what you're dealing with at a grander scale with this is there's going to be times in your life where you have to make these fucking hard decisions that aren't going to be in your immediate best interest because they're going to make you uncomfortable. They're going to make you lose money. They're going to make you but you have to do the right thing. And hopefully the cosmic universe will look down on you in the future and go, you did it right, dude. Good job. You know?
And that's just, I'm not gonna, it's hard for me to speak on politics and stuff because I'm not political. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie and tell you that I look at I follow, things every day that are good sourced and backed, and I know exactly that it's telling the truth or whatever side you're on politically. But I feel like that's part of the problem too, is that I think a lot of policies and things are so lobbied and paid for that it's not about being good anymore. It's about what makes me money, and that's a deeper thing. And I think that you start getting into some conversations where you just start not knowing. There's so many unknowns. Like, it's just, but I think that's kind of somehow some politicians, unfortunately, are motivated by, like, it's not about doing the right thing anymore. Sometimes, I think some people want to feel like that politicians are there for you and all that, and they're going to do the right thing all the time because they're good people. I mean, are they?
Right.
I mean, would they do anything to get your vote?
Yeah.
Would they support something that they don't really feel? Are they going to support this because are they going to support Black Lives Matter because they want to really, and they really feel strongly about making change and positive change? Or are they just going to say they are and still feel a certain way, whether it's race, whether they're racist or they don't agree with it?
Yeah.
Are they still are they going to do that just to get votes? And then when it comes down to actually voting policy through or like putting your stamp on something, are you going to veto it because you don't agree with it, but you got their vote in the first place? Like that's like
the pictures of the politicians kneeling with the African, I don't know what that thing's called, but it just seems so ingenuous to me that it was obviously an Instagram post that they were doing, and I don't know where we go politically in this country anymore, because the people who I want to run for politics are not stupid enough to run for politics. There's no way we're going to draft Jocko Willink into running for president. It's never going to happen. We're never going to get guys like Sam Harris or I don't know. We just need some kind of change. But all the people who are the ones I'd want to see in there to do the right thing just don't want any part of it because they're not dumb.
Yeah. I think that you could get into that with good intentions and then lose yourself. And I just and again, like, this is just me just talking about what I think. This is not like I don't know shit about it, like the real process of it and stuff, and if it's even possible to get deep into politics and be a politician and still be a good person.
Right.
I don't know.
I used to read these books by a guy named Carl Hyacin, who was a editorial writer for the Miami Herald. They were crazy Florida fuckery books, like Florida man kind of craziness. And there was one character in the book, and his name was Clinton Tyree, and he was this ex-Marine who runs for governor of the state of Florida, and by some crazy happenstance he wins, and he is so morally upright that they can't bribe him, and they can't deal with any of these crazy notions he wants to do, like fix the environment and so both sides, the Democrats and the Republicans, come together and basically say this guy's not going to get anything done. So he loses his mind, and he goes into the Everglades and just becomes a hermit, and he becomes like this environmental terrorist, where he's going around blowing up jet skis because they're ruining the manatee habitat, and it's crazy, but you could see that happening. A virtuous guy who had seen combat and done all these crazy things and wanted to come in and do the right thing, and just getting blasted by the amount of nonsense that happens in politics, and just loses his mind.
Yeah.
I can totally see it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but now that we're done saving the world, so football season, have they given you any indications of what it's going to look like?
No. So we're still school by school basis, especially I just talk for the MAC conference, school by school basis. Everybody's starting to institute their own plans on a phased return. I think all schools kind of have some sort of phased return that they're kind of easing into. So we're doing a football only. Third of our roster is going to be there on tomorrow, which is awesome. Just outside, so just field work 5 days a week, just kind of ease into that, and then we can keep adding a little bit more. And then when we get into early July sometime, it'll be phase 2, where we'll have our whole roster here in July.
Cool.
So
is it kind of been like us, where they've kind of given you guidelines, but you're kind of up to you to figure out how to do it?
Yeah, and we kind of all anticipate the MAC conference giving everybody a standard of rules, when it comes to like when we start getting into times where we're traveling to each other's schools to play. Yeah. What that looks like. Yeah. Are they going to require? Even our guys, even to get in the facility every day is a temperature check and a symptom questionnaire. So we're going to be kind of on top of the symptomatic people, at least. Like if they have a fever at all, they're going through this whole process, and we'll know. We'll be able to. At least people showing symptoms, will be able to keep that under control. That a lot of people are doing symptom checks instead of the actual test, because you have to be so frequent with the test, because if we tested everybody when they got back, we could still have a handful still have coronavirus 24 hours later. Sure. It's just it wasn't in their system enough where they would test. And I'm not medical, like I don't. No, I know. I'm pretty sure that's
even why, the medical people don't understand it. So
I'm pretty sure that's why we chose the route of not testing, because we're doing symptom checks and things like that.
Well, even if you have a cold or the flu, you don't want them in the facility.
Sure, exactly. So I mean, really, we wouldn't want them sick anyway. Yeah. In the training, so. It's going to be a nice way to kind of figure out and to navigate these waters at the beginning. But to answer your question about the season, man, I don't know what it's going to look like.
There's going to be fans or anything.
I think that they're already bumping down the travel roster size. How many you can bring to away games. But I'm thinking, everybody's sitting on a charter bus, everybody's sitting on a plane. How do we do the locker room pregame? Everybody's going to have to be in there getting dressed. There's so many things that come along with the game of football, and then obviously when they're training and controlling things that we can control is a big thing. Yeah. Because there's a lot of things with football, you can't practice football without
practicing football.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You can do individual drills and you can keep it separated, but at some point in time, you have to line up in front of each other and you have to play and you have to tackle and you have to do drills where you're contacting one another. So that's going to be interesting, and to see how see how all that navigation, and then you got the whole talk about fans in the stands.
Mm-hmm.
Are there gonna be people in the stadiums? We open up at Penn State, which is crazy because they have 100,000 people in their
Stadium is awesome.
It is.
Yeah.
And we played there a few years ago. I mean, it's just like you look at it, you're like, oh my
The
god.
lions off the side of it.
It's amazing. But those programs like that generate so much money from fans, and they give us these huge paychecks to come play them, right? We have huge paydays, multi-million-dollar paydays to go play these teams. If they're not getting 100,000 people in their stadium to generate all this revenue, they can't pay us as much.
Right.
And it's just like one of those downward things where like we're at the mid-major level where we don't have crazy amounts of revenue. The MAC we don't generate a lot of money from our attendance at football games, especially on Tuesday, Wednesday nights when the MAC starts playing those midweek games. Like you got a couple hundred there, maybe, but that's, like how is this financial, like what's going to happen here with football? And, I know they still got TV contracts and stuff, but man, it's going to be interesting to see, if they try to keep people spaced out still. I think you have to make a decision where there's like, you're going to have regulation or you're not, because, what do you do about concession stands? What do you do about bathrooms?
Yes.
I just wouldn't want to be somebody trying to figure that out.
It comes down to this. Look, let's be totally honest here. You and I get coronavirus, we're gonna be okay. We're gonna be sick a little bit, maybe not, maybe it'll be asymptomatic, but we're gonna get a little sick. We're gonna get better. We're gonna be fine. If you are an 80-year-old person, which is the vast majority of people that this is killing, if you get coronavirus, you might be fucked. If you get the flu, you might be fucked. If you fall and break your hip, you might be fucked. You shouldn't be climbing stairs in stadiums, I mean, if you are worried about this, you should stay home and you should quarantine yourself. I didn't let my parents leave their house they're in their 70s and they're healthy. I didn't let them leave their house for a couple weeks. I went and bought them groceries and shit. But to quarantine healthy people and put all these restrictions, because they're nonsense restrictions. First of all, we've got a good practice. You notice we've got like the spray bottles out everywhere.
Yeah.
That's going to go into effect whether they that's going to stay in effect whether they take it away or not. Now they're saying it's very rare that you can even spread it that way through touching a surface. Not coming in here when you're sick. Has always been a rule, but we're going to even stress it more now. And my new thing is, don't tell me it's allergies. I don't give a fuck. Stay home.
Yeah.
Stay home.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff is, again, something that is good that's come out of this, that we took a step back and go, okay, let's do it this way. But to continue these restrictions, and I kind of say it's like when we went into Iraq and had no exit plan to get out of Iraq. We went in guns blazing, we locked everybody down, we put all these restrictions in, and we don't know, because now let's say Governor DeWine says, no, you don't need the restrictions anymore. We think we're okay. The first person who dies from coronavirus is going to sue the fuck out of him. So I don't know how we get out of these restrictions other than just to say, okay, I'm going to Target, I'm not wearing a mask anymore, and guess what? I'm not a filthy, disgusting human being, so if I sneeze or cough, I'm going to put my face in my shirt and...
Yeah.
You can't. I know a lot of people aren't. Some people are not going to do that because they're disgusting humans. But I think this is just what you deal with when you live in a society of people, and it's not what we thought it was. It's not this. It's not the plague. It's not. It's not killing everybody.
I don't think. I don't think that just by how this has been responded to, and the lack of leadership and the lack of consistent message.
Yes,
I don't think that we're going to be able to get out of this until there is like a vaccine, that is reliable and that has been tested like it should be. And I just don't think that it can be what we all, normal life, what we classified as normal life before this. Get back to that until people have that security blanket.
Right. Yeah.
You know, because there's, you know, people feel a lot of different ways about this, but I think it's a lot, unfortunately, it's been because of the so many different, you know, nobody's been consistent with any sort of message. The CDC would come out and say something, and then the day after they would say something different.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, and that's, I guess, like they're figuring things out too, and I wouldn't want to be in that situation either, but I mean, it's just been really tough to navigate these waters, and like with all the different news sources and again, social media, like how big of a role that plays in all this. Like, I mean, it's hard to navigate and find, you know, information that you really think is true and valuable. And
Well, we have people who haven't come back yet to the gym, and they've told me, you know, they're still a little afraid of this. And I'm like, great, I understand that. You're allowed to be afraid of this. Stay home.
Yeah.
You're the that should be your choice as a human being. I think that this could be bad, or I'm not sure if this is bad, so I'm going to stay home. That's totally fine. But to force healthy people into these situations was a bad move. And man, there's so much craziness that revolves around it. And like you said, the message changes every day. And you know, my wife, who is the head of a clinic, you know, she felt one way at first, but even she now is like, maybe this isn't what we thought it was, you know, but there is no exit strategy and there's no way out of this without someone getting sued.
You know, and the population that we work with, we got healthy, you know, football players and athletes across the board in an age range where it's not likely, but they could still get it, you know, and that's the thing now is, you know, all these schools that are coming back with these protocols of getting people back into doing this stuff and training and getting back around each other are having massive, like, you know, when I say massive, like 8 or 9 people on a football team are tested positive now, and then that suspends everything.
Yeah.
So it's like we have to overdo it so much where we have to be so careful, because if something does happen, you know, we're anxious to get them back, but if we do have a positive test on our team, whether or not that guy's in a life or death situation or not, or he's going to be sick for 2 or 3 days, he still has the coronavirus. And the media and the backlash of that, if we don't handle this situation right, we could all be in trouble with football.
Yeah,
you know, like
you could lose it.
You know, we could lose because you know, we were around all these sports in the spring that got pulled like that.
Yeah.
You know, all these athletes that have worked, you know,
how many state years, wrestling championships.
Yeah, but I mean, like, but you know, you think about how you feel about that, but like an athlete that lost their senior year of, you know, softball, that's been working hard, you know, working for 4 years and finally got into a role where they're playing every day, you know, playing every game, and you know how the investment of that, you know, and then all of a sudden to be just like, nah, we're canceling your season.
My son went through it.
Yeah.
Luckily, he was only a freshman, so you know, I said it could be a lot worse. And, oh, anyhow. Well, man, I have kept you going forever, so I'm going to let you get back to your family. We need to do this again, especially after see how the season goes and what happens.
That'd be awesome.
All right. All right, this has been the Refined Savage. See ya.